Hello, everybody. My name is Lita Abella. Welcome to my new show, What's Your Story in the New Normal? I'm an entrepreneur, health and wellness consultant, public speaker, licensed private investigator, and former LAPD lieutenant. And in between all that, I went to law school and obtained my JD. I tell stories that inform, inspire, and influence others. I am so excited about my guest today. This is going to be a first for me. My guest, her name is Mykel Barthelemy, and you will not believe how we found each other. She actually found me, and I'm gonna let her tell the story of how she found me and how we actually connected. But first, I wanna welcome my guest, Mykel. And can you start off with just telling us a little bit about your personal life, a little bit about your background?
Okay, well, first of all, I can tell, do you want me to tell them how we met or you want me to tell them? Okay, well, so basically, my kids signed me up for 23andMe, and I went ahead and turned in my DNA, and Lita was one of the persons that popped up as someone that showed up on my mother's side, and I just felt drawn to her because her facial features reminded me of a lot of the women on my mother's side of the family, and especially because I saw a Filipino, because it showed up that I had Filipino in my DNA as well. So, in Ancestry, my other DNA test. And I said, well, shoot, let me reach out to her. So I looked her up and I saw it. I'm like, wow, she's in LA. She was in a private event. I love a person like this. I love her. So let me go ahead and contact her and just see maybe how, because I've never met anyone that far out, and maybe we're fifth cousins or something, or fourth cousins or something. And I said, let me reach out to her to see how we could possibly be related. And that's how we connected. So I emailed her, and that's basically how we connected.
Yes, it was. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And then when I, me being a private investigator, of course, I'm going to be nosy and do my due diligence and Google you. And when I found out who you are and what you're involved in, I was just flabbergasted. I was like, oh my God, I need to meet this person. And this is actually the first time we are talking live to live. We've emailed each other a couple times and texted a couple times, but this is the first time we're actually talking and seeing each other in a live, virtually live situation. So I'm so excited to learn about you. So again, tell me a little bit about your background and your personal life.
Oh, basically, I am from Louisiana. I'm from Acadiana, Gulf Coast native, Creole, and born and raised in Morgan City, Louisiana. A lot of my people are from New Orleans and that southeast region along the Gulf Coast. And that's who I am as a person, born and raised. I mean, all I know is crawfish and bayou and swamps and stuff like that. So I am definitely a native. But basically, I was raised by both parents. My father is deceased right now. My mother is a political activist, and she is a Democrat activist, and she's just an amazing person. She high energy and just a wonderful, educated person. Our entire family on that side of the family, they're all highly educated. I mean, everyone has multiple degrees, except for me. I don't have multiple degrees. Started out, in college. I got pregnant and had to wind up getting married because, back then in the South, you don't get pregnant without getting married. So my parents pretty much pressured me to get married at the age of 19. And that turned into a domestic violence situation where I had to run for my life with 3 kids. And I ran up to California and restarted my life there in Long Beach. And then back and forth sometimes to LA. And back there is where I became born again and became licensed and ordained in the ministry out there in Los Angeles County. And basically created a life of hard work, working 3 jobs, trying to support 3 children, going to 3 different schools. So my life was pretty rough, pretty hardworking. And so as my children got older, what happened is I have a cousin from New Orleans named Master P. Percy Miller, and he created a record rap label. And I'm not into rap or anything like that, but he became like one of the youngest persons listed in Forbes magazine. They wanted me to come out there to New Orleans to help to support the record label. And I told them, I said, I'm a minister. There's no way I can support rap or anything like that. And they said, well, no, we need you to come out because, you know, there may be some hits out on the family members because of the way that the record industry operated back then. So I went ahead and moved out there because I thought it was an opportunity that I could write my book, my first book, and basically, you know, do what I had to do without having to work. So I was tired of working anyway. So, and I thought it was a dream. It was a dream life to live amongst the rich and the famous and stuff like that. And from that point, that lasted for about 2 years. Then I moved back to California, and the rest is history. And some form or fashion, I got to Georgia because of of course, with the whole domestic violence thing, the whole child custody battle, and that's what led me to Georgia. And because the judge said, well, we don't want you to take the kids to California. So I said, well, they didn't say anything about Georgia. That's the next biggest city. I can never, after being cityfied in LA, there's no way I can go back to rural Louisiana. I have to be in the city. So we moved to Georgia. And from there, I started working for the SBA, federal government, the SBA, Small Business Administration Office of Disaster Assistance, and worked my way up to a procurement officer, which I dealt with paying the bills and ordering supplies and services for the United States government, different agencies. And I loved it there. And that's where my interest in politics started.
Wow. I mean,
I know it's a complicated story.
The name of that person, somebody Miller, Percy
Miller. Mm-hmm.
Like
very famous.
Why Miller?
Percy Miller, Master P.
And he's a rapper?
He was a rapper turned entrepreneur. He makes movies. He has a son named by the name of Little Romeo. He's always on, I think he hosts The Bachelor, and they're on television. They're making movies. So yeah.
Yeah, see, I don't listen to rap, so I don't.
Me either.
The only rapper I know is probably like Snoop Dogg, and that's because he lives down the street in Diamond Bar.
And he signed Snoop to the label, to his record label back in the 1999. Snoop was part of the label.
Oh my gosh! Wow, there was so much information there. So you have 3 kids, and how old are your kids?
3 daughters. They're 32, 29, and 28. Destiny, Amber, and Sky.
Oh my gosh! So my stepdaughter's name is Amber. My I guess my ex-husband's sister's son, his wife's name is Sky.
Wow.
Destiny, Amber, and what was the other one?
Sky.
Sky.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, talk about so many things that we have in common. And me also, my first marriage, when I was married at the age of 17 in 11th grade,
wow.
and divorced by the age of 21. I had a lot of domestic violence in my first marriage. He turned out to be a drug addict and a lot of stuff. And I met him in Hollywood. We moved to Glendale, then we moved to Rancho Cucamonga, and I finally escaped that. And then that's when I joined the police department at the age of 21. So it's just ironic and so eerie how much we have in common. So are you currently married now?
I am married. I'm remarried to the love of my life. He's an absolutely wonderful man by the name of Charles Barthelemy. He's a banker, businessman, and we click like you would believe. We're like twins. We're soulmates, and he's handsome, and he's fighting. He's everything. I just love him so much. So we've been married for about going on 7 years now, and
wow.
We're doing pretty good here in Georgia.
So tell me about that business. What does the banking business, what is that about?
Okay, it's called Barthelemy Commercial Capital. It's a lending and business consulting firm. And what we do here is we pretty much bridge the gap between borrowers and lenders. So basically we help business owners to procure capital for their businesses, any range between maybe a $500,000 and up. So we do little deals, we do $33 million deals and secured by real estate. Some of it is unsecured. But right now, because of COVID-19, all normal banking business operate, most of it is shut down. So most of the banks are focusing on COVID-19 PPPL loans and stuff like that. What's crazy is that my background is in that small business administration disaster assistance. So, right, you know, that's my niche. I understand how it works, and that's what I did back in 2004, 2007, was to help businesses to procure capital in a disaster situation. But this is like none other. This COVID thing is crazy.
Oh yes, this is just nothing any of us could ever imagine, have ever lived through. Now, is Georgia opened back up now?
Yes, we were one of the first states to open up, and you know, there was a little controversy because President Trump did not like the way that Governor Brian Kemp rolled out his reopening, starting with, I would say, hands-on businesses like salons and spas and massage parlors and barbershops and stuff like that. So he wasn't happy about that, but it was a little rocky, but I'm thinking that people pretty much have the concept of, you know, social distancing and sanitation. So we're doing pretty good. Tomorrow, they're going to open up the malls. Simon malls are opening tomorrow.
Wow. Well, here in California, we're still on lockdown. You know, Northern California is called shelter in place, and down here in Southern California, it's safer at home. So everything is still on lockdown except for essential workers, you know, the hospitals, law enforcement, and so forth. But there's two things that I want to get to, and I know your time is very valuable because of the next two things I'm going to talk about. I want to talk about, when I did some research, I found out that you wrote a book called Trump is Not a Racist, and Here's Why. And then I also found out that you are running for Congress in the sixth district of Georgia.
Yes.
So please tell me about that and how you got involved with all that.
Okay, so this is the book right here. I don't know if it shows up backwards or what, but this is my book, Trump is Not a Racist, Here's Why. And the reason why I decided to write the book is that I was, you know, I grew up I was born in '67. I'm 52 years old, going on 53. And I grew up watching Donald Trump. Donald Trump has always been a hip hop icon. He was always the epitome of the American dream. And you know, everybody loved Donald Trump, and up all the way up until he decided to run on a Republican ticket. And you know, Republicans always had the stigma of being racist and stuff like that, which I understand that is not the case. But I was just sticking to my heart. My heart broke to see one person being beat up on every single day from people, from the media, and from, you know, lots of lies and disinformation was thrown out about Donald Trump. And I just wanted to bring the information, the real information, and the truth back into focus, into perspective, that this man has never been a racist. And I have proof. I have my different proofs. About over 200 songs, R&B and pop, were written about Donald Trump, and they included him in their lyrics, including rappers. And also I talked about the history of racism and what racism really is, and how that word has evolved over the decades, being, I guess, by certain political groups playing semantics on the word racism, and understanding how that word conveys so many negative emotions. And so I just want to bring things back into perspective about it, and showing the proofs on the great things that President Trump has done for the African-American community since his first month in office. And he continues to make improvements and do things that no other president has ever done for the Black community.
Wow. When was this book written?
I wrote it last year. It was released in November of last year.
November of 2019.
And if you know a great publisher that can help me really, really get it out, just let me know.
Okay, we could work on that together. This is so amazing because, you know, my family has always been Democrats, and my mom was from New Orleans. And so I grew up in a Democratic family, always been a Democrat, until I met my last husband, who I met on the police department, and his family is way to the right. I mean, very ultra-conservative Republicans. And it was almost kind of a rite of passage in the marriage. It's like, no, you need to be a Republican if you're going to be in this family. So I changed to Republican, and it was an eye-opener for me. And so I'm not a strongly political person. I'm really in the middle, but I am a registered Republican. I did vote for Donald Trump, and I try to see the good and bad in everybody. I see the good. There's good things he's done. There's some not so good things that he's done. But usually when people look at people like us, especially women of color, they automatically think. Usually the first thing they think is oh, welfare, low life, uneducated, Democrat, handouts. They didn't never look at a woman of color and say, oh, she's educated. She's a CEO. She owns her own business. She's, a Republican. No, they never, that's not the first thing that comes into their mind until you actually let people know about your political affiliations and yourself. Nobody would ever even think of that.
Exactly.
When I saw that you had written that book, I literally almost fell off my chair. I was like, what? So, okay, now tell me how this evolved into you running for Congress.
Oh, because I just felt like at this age and seeing all of the things that are going on and the craziness and the confusion in our country and how our country has become so divided after it was unified. Remember, there was a time when Democrats and Republicans can get along. There was a time when people didn't even talk about politics and religion and, in the same setting, like over Thanksgiving or Christmas. But, coming from a Democrat, like I said, my mother is a Democrat activist. This woman was the president of the NAACP in the area. She is still right now the secretary for the NAACP in her area. She's on so many boards and committees, and they forward Democrat principles. But me, I'm not a person that's been sold out to any organization. I'm not a blind follower. I have never been a blind follower. I don't just take people's words for anything. I have to do my own research. So ever since I was a little kid, when other kids were playing, I was at the library. I just love to read. I love information. And after doing my own research, to me, it did not make any sense for anyone, especially a Black person from slave roots, to be a Democrat based on the history of slavery in the Democrat Party and the history of Jim Crow. So I could not, with all good faith and all with my conscience, adhere to something that was anti people of color. So, but they later on changed the branding into being the party of the working class. So seeing that all of this, all of the lies, all of the propaganda, I decided, I said, you know what, and seeing how there is a plan where the Democrats used to be where the Republicans are right now. They've shifted further to the left after Barack Obama to the point where they're now being named as the Democrat Socialist Party, to me, which is very, very dangerous in our country. And to me, I would like to see the country come more back to the center. So I just, looked and I saw, you know what, you don't have to be a Democrat, you don't have to be Republican, but please, everybody, please let's have common sense. Let's have civility here. So I looked to see in my state, what can I do to help bring this country back to the center? I don't want to see it slide off into infinity and the never land where we start to lose our constitutional rights. There are bills laid out by the Democrat Party, lots of bills that would basically take away our basic freedoms and our constitutional rights, basically evolving, fundamentally transforming the country into something that does not even resemble America. They call it progressivism, but it's turning into something that is antithetical to our Constitution. So that's why I looked and I said, hey, let me see what can I do? And I prayed about it. And I prayed about it for about 9 months. And I just got the okay from God that just same way I felt when I was called into the ministry, like this is my calling and I'm a leader, and there's a lot of people who are clueless. They can't see the big picture. They can only think in a microcosmic aspect instead of the macrocosmic. I've always looked at the big picture. And so I'm like, you know what? We need leaders here. I mean, at my age, 52 years old, I guess we're the generation that has to be the leaders, because will there be a country left for my grandkids? I have 2 grandsons, by the way, 15 and 10. And I mean, will there be a country left for them? Will they have their freedoms intact? So I felt that it's my citizen duty as a concerned citizen, not a politician. I have no political affiliations. Well, now I do, but before I didn't. So I wanted to do something to save this country. And so I'm an introvert. I'm a private person. I like to be behind the scenes. I'm actually shy. I don't like public speaking. I don't like standing out front. I like staying in my house, and I don't want anybody in my business. But I say, you know what? If Jesus can lay down his life for the world, I can lay down my freedoms for the rest of my life, for my country and for my God. So I love this country so much. I love every person in this country, black, white, yellow, gay, straight. I don't care what you are. I love everybody. And I just want to see the country back in a cohesive state. So that is the reason why I decided to run for Congress.
Wow, that's a lot.
Some of the reasons.
So how long did you start this journey in running for Congress? And I kind of looked up too, as you know, California is a very, very, very liberal state. I mean, unfortunately out here, if you wear a baseball hat that says, you know, make America great again, they beat you up and it's—
They do. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of violence that's being underplayed against Trump supporters, MAGA hat wearers, or whatever, what have you. And I think we've gotten to a point where when it's okay to assault someone based on what they believe or what they stand for, to me, we're in a dangerous place.
Right.
You know, and it shouldn't be so. So I don't see conservatives beating up, you know, liberals because of we just accept what they believe. And we don't think that we should go against if you want to believe it, that's fine, you know. But the journey that I've taken, it started out in probably June or July. I was diagnosed with Graves' disease because I was affected by a mold illness. I lost 30 to 40 pounds, almost died. And I felt my life leaving me. And I said, you know what, before I leave this earth, I want to do something that's going to impact future generations. And I say, Lord, you know, I mean, if I make it out of this, I'll just say, you know, yes. So I just felt the calling on me. I did my research, I did my praying. I prayed until I couldn't pray anymore. And then when I decided to say yes to this calling to run for Congress, I felt the weight lift off of me.
Wow.
And so I was going to announce in November, but I decided to wait until January. So here I am. So I declared on January 15th. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I also looked to see who's actually running. And I know I wrote it down somewhere. So of all the candidates, yourself, 2 female whites, 1 male white, and 1 male black that's running for that district. So what do you think your chances are with, you know, in winning?
Well, actually, there's the lady that's holding the seat right now is a Democrat. She flipped the seat to blue after 39 years of the seat being red, flipped by the infamous Newt Gingrich, who was the former Speaker of the House. She's a Democrat. She looks white, but she's black. And then we have Karen Handel, who was the former Congresswoman who lost the seat after having it for 1 term. Then we have 2 black ladies, which is myself and a lady by the name of Paulette Smith, a black guy who was a former NFL player. He used to play for the Saints by the name of Joe Prophet, and a white guy by the name of Blake Harbin. So basically, you have, you know, everyone is black except for 2 people. Yes. So, but everyone, and you know, there's like 5 people running on the Republican side. I really think I have a good chance. I looked at a lot of the answers of the surveys that most of the candidates took, and I'm like, some people may have some intellectual disabilities and comprehensive disabilities here. Karen Handel, she is a very strong candidate. I respect every last one of them, but Karen Handel, I believe, is a strong candidate because she did have the seat before, but she was appointed. She had a lot of help from the party. She was the former Secretary of State for the state of Georgia, and maybe one other office that she held. And Karen is very strong, but at the same time, she lost the seat by a slim margin of 3,000 votes, being that she raised millions and millions of dollars and lost to a virtual nobody who was Democrat. It shows that she's a weak candidate. As I surveyed the area, A lot of people do not support Karen Handel. They don't even like her. So I hate to say that, but it's true. I like her. I mean, I don't really know her personally. I like them. I love them all. But I really feel that I have a chance, being that people were looking for, as a matter of fact, people asked me to run, say, please run. We don't even like her. I mean, she's lazy. She doesn't reach out to the people. She's snobby, you know, and I'm not trying to give her, telling you what I've been told. I'm not saying that. So I think I have a good chance.
So, and you've never held any political position before?
I've never held a political position, and everybody who's run, at some point, they had to start out from somewhere. So I know I'm starting out pretty high, but it doesn't matter, because look at, we have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Come on, she was a bartender. Now she's basically running the Democrat Party.
Wow. Isn't it very expensive to run for political office?
It is very expensive. I don't have the money or the yet. You know, there is time. I mean, I know we have a slim margin. The election is June the 9th, but right now, you know, because everything's been shut down, we have what we're doing right now, Zoom, digital media. So digital media is getting my name out there. Plus my name is already out there because I've already declared I've qualified on March the 6th. So my name is in the federal registers, the federal, you know, the databases. And so my name is way out there. So it does cost a lot, but we can be creative at this point. But I believe that I can secure the Republican nomination. And once that happens, then that's when, you know, the financing comes in.
Right. Okay. Well, this is just so amazing. All the things that you're juggling, all the things that you're doing, you know, being a wife, a mother, a grandmother, writing a book, an author. Now, is this your first book, or was there another book that you wrote?
There was another book. It was called The Good Side of Evil, Exposing the Satanic Conspiracy Behind the Psychics and the New Age Movement. I know it's a long semi-title, but I wrote that book at the age of 24 years old. I started writing it at 24 when I first became born again. And I started seeing a lot of astrologers and astrology and a lot of temptation being drawn into, you know, the psychics and witchcraft. So I started doing my research and I got to the bottom of it. And but that book has never gone into print. It was only on an ebook form, and I really didn't have the money or the knowledge on how to do that. So I'll put that book on hold until I get this book where I want it to go. Trump is not a racist.
How's the sales going with that book?
Oh, slow sales. Again, I don't have a major publishing house behind me, and basically I'm coming out with once I do find a publishing house, then I will come out with a revised version of it, an expanded edition.
And I just find we have so much in common. You talked about you have your three daughters, 28, 29, and 32. My son, Christian, who just finished law school, graduated from law school, and actually was supposed to have his commencement next week, which has been canceled. He's 29 years of age. And I have 5-step kids and 6-step grandkids. So just so much in common. I would love to actually get together and meet you in person one day. It seems like we have a lot in common with a lot of values and so forth. So I know that your times are very valuable. You have to get on to another event right after this, and I actually have a meeting too for work. I'm doing this on my lunch break.
Well, can I ask you a couple of questions before we go?
Sure.
So I'm very interested in you becoming a private investigator. I've always wanted to do something like that. I've always wanted to be in law enforcement, but because I have the 3 kids, I never had, you know, the time or the resources to do it. Tell me, how did you get into law enforcement?
How did I get into law enforcement? I was very young at the age of 21, and I remember the Los Angeles Police Department was recruiting very heavily for females and minorities, but mostly for females, because a consent decree had just been ordered by the federal court telling LAPD they needed to hire more females. And so they lowered the height requirement from 5'6" to 5 foot. And I'm 5'8". Yeah, I used to be.
Oh, you're tall.
Yeah, but now I used to be 5'9", I've shrunk down to 5'8". But anyway, I said to myself, oh my God, if they've lowered the height requirement to 5 foot, they must be desperate for people, you know, because at the time I couldn't even imagine a 5 foot police officer, whether the person's male or female. So anyway, being a police officer was not something that I dreamed of being when I was a little kid. I always wanted to be a teacher. So I applied, I went through the police academy. It was extremely difficult for me, but I survived with help of a lot of good classmates in the academy. And I moved up the ranks from police officer to training officer to senior lead officer, detective, sergeant, and then I left at the rank of lieutenant 20 years later. And I loved my job as a police officer. I loved the community, working with the community. I loved being a public servant. But the only reason why I left the police department was because internally I went through so many struggles with sexual harassment, sexual discrimination, racial discrimination, hostile work environment, to the point that I just couldn't take it anymore. And I left after 20 years. And then I used my experience in law enforcement to get licensed. Here in California, you have to actually be licensed. You have to take a test and become a private investigator. And you have to have so many hours in investigations in order to qualify. So my 20 years of being in law enforcement qualified me easily to get my PI license. And so I started doing criminal defense right off the bat. I hated it because I felt like, oh my God, for 20 years, I put people in jail, and now I'm helping to get people out of jail. You know, so like I was handling a lot of murder cases, and it just made me sick to my stomach because the person was guilty. But I would find things that, unfortunately, the police made some mistakes. You know, they violated the defendant's due process rights. They recovered evidence that was illegally, and you know, so the defendants were ending up getting off, but they committed these crimes, and so it just made me made me sick. So I ended up going into workers' compensation for about 10 years, and in between all that, I ended up going to law school because the attorney who I hired to represent me in a case against the Los Angeles Police Department, he ended up committing malpractice. And so I told myself, I said, you know what? I'm never going to let that happen to me again. I'm going to go to law school and learn the law myself. Unfortunately, I didn't pass the bar, and that's why I'm not an attorney, but I still having a law degree is extremely helpful.
Awesome. You are a phenomenal woman. You really, really are. I really admire you.
Thank you.
Now, had I had your experience along with me running for Congress, boy, I'd be a bad mamma jamma, wouldn't I?
I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And we will definitely continue to keep in touch now that we formally met each other. And I'm glad that we are distant, or kind of distant cousins, fourth or fifth cousins of some sort. So we'll have to.
Do you see anything going on here? Any resemblance there with your mom?
I definitely do.
You do great.
So I want to thank you so much for your time, and for my viewers, make sure that you stay tuned for the next episode, which will be coming out next week, in What's Your Story in the New Normal. And until then, stay safe, stay positive, stay healthy, and stay home. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.